You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen, and I am here with another wonderful guest. And her name is Tracy Pleschourt. I forgot to ask you exactly. Okay.
Yeah, got it. You're one of the few who actually get it right on the first try. So
really? Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. That's like my last name as well. Everyone says Rosen. It's like, no. Okay. We won't go into that story. Tracy is the founder of Self-Made You, and that's just the letter U, which I think is very cute. And the host of Secrets of the Self-Made podcast, which helps men and women create self-made wealth and wellness through life coaching. Tracy has mastered and now teaches the critical skills necessary to manage your mind and overcome any obstacle, including overeating, overdrinking, time management, career, and relationship changes. And welcome, Tracy.
And, Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so it's you kind of have the whole gamut that what you have really applies to everything, right?
I do, yeah. And I think not unlike, other institutions, I guess, or schools out there, you kind of can dabble and learn in lots of areas. We have a curriculum that has definitely a foundational concept, but we teach people how to apply those concepts to all areas of their life. So it just lends itself so beautifully to us, showing people or giving them examples of things that they can overcome, like overeating, overdrinking, healing relationships. And we can also inspire them with examples of things that they may have never thought possible for themselves, like huge career changes or, income generating, tactics that they never thought that they were capable of doing. So yeah, it's a very comprehensive offering because we have this tool that we teach that can be applied to everything.
Wow. So just kind of what comes to mind a little bit is, do people come to you for one thing and end up working on 5 other things as well, or not even do, or that one gets resolved when something else, you find something else
yes, that does happen. And I will say that I have a background in marketing. I'm a former advertising executive. And so I know probably better than a lot of other entrepreneurs that you've got to hook people, you've got to speak to them. They have to be able to recognize themselves in your offer and what you stand for. And so, I do hook people with the promise of weight loss or overcoming, any sort of overeating tendencies or overdrinking tendencies. And yes, they come in, they learn these skill sets. And then the fun part for me is really taking their learning to a deeper level through applying it to other things, like really like prompting them to generate new ideas, new dreams, and then encouraging them to really try their hand at the same concept, but in a different format. And so, a lot of our testimonials end up sounding a lot like, I came to lose weight and I ended up, doubling my income, which sounds crazy, and I have a lot of podcast hosts who will say, all right, you tout yourself as somebody who can make weight loss parallel with income earning. What does that mean? And it's like they generate a sense of confidence that they never had before in this skill set of taking responsibility for generating any result that they want. And so it does lend itself so beautifully to all things, whether they've come to mind or not. And most people who are really struggling with weight, that's their focus. Like they are almost on the brink of like obsessed with weight. So they don't see anything else. They don't see any other possibilities. It's like, I like to say we are an online school for people who think that their weight is the biggest problem in their life. Like that's the person I love to help, because they'll quickly see that it's only a problem because they are so narrowly focused on that. And I'm not suggesting that it's not a problem, but once I can show you how to manage your thoughts and your emotions around it, you'll be shocked at how that problem, the feeling of, being burdened by such a problem is extinguished. And you start to feel so much lighter because you're not carrying around this, self-loathing thought loop that's going on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times people, there's so many reasons, excuses, whatever, that people, for why people gain a lot of weight.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Right. I mean, and which is, so that's why they can't lose the weight. It's because it's doing another purpose for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I like to teach in frameworks because I personally believe that our brain is not a vault, it's a processor. And so I try to create frameworks to make learning easier. And one of the frameworks that I'm constantly using to assess my well-being, and I teach my clients to do the same, is to really kind of look holistically, mentally, emotionally, physically, metabolically. Those are kind of the 4 biggies of your health and wellness that I think if you want to assess, take all 4 of those into account. How are you feeling mentally? How are you feeling emotionally? How are you feeling physically? We all are pretty darn good at assessing our physical well-being because we look at, how our clothes are feeling, right? Or what the scale says. So the physical isn't hard. I think that tends to hold our attention captive. But I also encourage people from a metabolic standpoint, like we teach our clients how to take their blood and assess their blood glucose and their ketones. And we teach them what autophagy means and why it's important to get into levels of autophagy. That's all, all about your metabolic health, which equates to longevity. So super important that you understand metabolically, where you stand on, from a health and wellness standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially these days.
Yeah. With the onset of the pandemic and COVID specifically, for sure. Yeah. I mean, my kids are home from college. My son just graduated from college, and I have a daughter who's going to be a senior in college. And anytime I say to them, I haven't gotten COVID yet, and I'm not saying I won't, but I will say that, I take really good care of myself and I'm constantly managing my health around those 4 components. I'm not allowing myself to lose sight in any one thing and in any one area. And so my kids say, "Oh, nice flex, mom," like flexing your muscle. Nice flex, mom. Like whatever, call it whatever you want. It's true.
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think, these days it has kind of changed a little bit. And parts are kind of coming back. I know, just for myself, I used to go to the gym 2-3 times a week. My gym closed, never to come back again. Right. The gym my husband was going to closed. And then it was like, okay, do we really want to go into a gym? Right. And so, we bought some weights and all that kind of stuff, and we walk every day, but it's not the same, and our level of health, I know that way just isn't.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting thought, So the circumstance is that your gym closed and that you've taken up free weights at home, but your thought is it's not the same. And so this is a great segue into what we teach in regards to the solving of the mind math, because it's not the same. Your primitive brain wants to fight for that. And it's believing that as a truth, right? Because that's what our primitive part of our brain does. It's meant to just keep us alive. It's all about survival, avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. So it's not the same. If you notice how that makes you feel, like what that thought actually generates in you, the vibration, energy, and then you really assess, okay, how do I show up when I'm feeling that way? And then you assess, what you're doing, what you're not doing, and what kind of result that's creating for you. It may or may not be serving you. And that's what we teach our clients to do, is to really kind of tease apart the thinking, specifically the thinking that's very unintentional, that's kind of subconscious, to heighten your awareness around it and see how it's creating your result, and not so you can deem it right or wrong, good or bad, but just so you can have a choice of whether you want to continue to rinse and repeat. So that would be a great thought for you to do the mind math on, and to see, okay, so when I think that thought, what's the feeling that I notice I'm experiencing? Is it a sense of defeat? Is it a sense of motivation? Is it a sense of curiosity? Like, what is it? And then when you can name that emotion, then you can get really clear on, how am I showing up when I'm feeling this way? So if you're feeling, defeated, then how do you show up? What do you do? What don't you do? What's the vibe from which you do it? And then what are you creating for yourself? Right? Are you likely are manifesting, if you're having an unwanted feeling from that thought, you're probably manifesting that experience from which you're thinking. So things have changed, or things aren't the same, right? You actually end up creating for yourself. If you're creating from an unwanted feeling, like disappointed or defeated, you're probably creating for yourself an experience that things are not the same. And it's just like this rinse and repeat, and it's almost steeped in, I'm not saying that this is, because a lot of people will have this thought, things are not the same. And the feeling that they get from that is curiosity, is excitement, is joy, right? So it's just fascinating to kind of tease that apart and see how that thinking is serving you.
No, exactly. And it's funny, because when you were saying all that, I was kind of like, okay, so how am I feeling about it? I just kind of miss it. I mean, it's not, I don't feel badly. Sometimes it was a pain in the butt to go. So, but I just, there's a good feeling that you have after you've worked out.
Right.
And that's what I miss. That's what I miss. It's not the people or the this or the that. And I wasn't in taking classes or any of that. I just went and did things on the equipment, and
and so, if you notice that the feeling maybe starts to morph into an unwanted feeling, like things are not the same. And when you really kind of take the, the mind math formula and you, okay, so now how am I reacting to that? Like, it might be more of a fear-based thought. How do I react to that? I maybe really look for a lot of evidence around all the things that are not the same. Maybe I don't try to create that same sort of experience in a new sort of way. Maybe I kind of shut down. And the reason why I'm suggesting this is because I think maybe some of your audience can relate to this, because of COVID. It's a reality that a lot of, health clubs did shut down. And they're really noticing now that, they aren't liking maybe the weight gain or the loss of flexibility or the loss of muscle mass. They can better understand how did they get here. And so I like to always start with my client's current experience to teach this methodology. Start with where you're at to really understand how you are creating your results, your experience. So that's a way you can really personalize it. And I think you're going to learn at a much deeper level when it's very personal and relatable.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. It's, and it's funny because the only reason I was thinking about it is because my husband was working out with the weights last night in the hallway.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that because I just put some 8-pound weights in my office. We have a gym downstairs. And I was like, I haven't been getting down here as much as I would like to. I thought, so how can I make this easier on myself? And I grabbed the weights and I put them in my office. So I'm like, there you go. I'll make sure
exactly.
Strength training with my arms in the morning, I sit down, or in between podcasts.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. It is. It is interesting the way that we stop doing things or start doing things or whatever.
And I think the key is to ultimately retain the responsibility, retain the sense of control, because the minute you start, placing blame, and I use that word lightly, I'm not using it in a condemning sort of way, but a lot of us do that. We'll say it's because of this circumstance that I don't do anymore. The minute you can retain the control, retain the responsibility, you will notice everything shifting. Because if you're placing blame on COVID, you've now given away all of your power. Right? You're giving the power to something outside of you. We want to retain the power and recognize that I can think one way about COVID and get these results, but I can absolutely intentionally think and feel a different way to get different results. And I know, to somebody who's maybe hearing this for the first time, they're like, that's a bunch of woo-woo. And I promise you, it works really, really well. And I would just encourage you to just for a moment, consider that you do create all of your results in your life. And
absolutely.
And that there might be an opportunity for you to feel more in control, especially for those people who are feeling very out of control right now.
And I think, that kind of reminds me of so many different modes that work for people, right? Which is that you start small, and then you get control of it, and then you can keep moving through the rest of your life and doing the same thing.
If you're somebody
looking at it,
if you wake up one morning and you're like, all right, enough is enough, I'm going to go out and run 3 miles, come home, lift weights for the next hour, go sit in the sauna, all that kind of stuff. That I tend to think that that's a very self-sabotaging technique, where you're all in, but it's not very sustainable. So you want to be pretty intentional, mindful of, old patterns, old ways of thinking, like this all or nothing thinking, because you will end up rinse and repeating if you're somebody who is a perfectionist, right? Like, know that tendency about yourself, know why you show up in that way. What is the thought that's behind the feeling of, I have to do this right.
That's right. And notice the feeling and notice the thought.
And that takes work.
Absolutely. You can't, I mean, you can do it once in a while when you're starting out. But it's like anything, the more you do it, the more ingrained it becomes, and you can start catching yourself before you go down the rabbit hole.
And for anybody who our school, Self-Made You, we teach people how to become self-made. And that just is how to take responsibility for your results. That's it. It's a person who takes responsibility for the results that they're creating in their life. And you're never too young and you're never too old to learn that skill set of taking responsibility for every experience, every result that you have. And so, fundamentally, that's what we teach. And it's how to become self-made.
So mind math, that's been around for a while. Yes.
It's so we coined the term mind math.
Oh, okay.
It's purely but it is based on, I'm certified through the Life Coach School.
Okay.
And they use a formula called the model. And so it's a iteration of the model. And it is basically, you have a thought about any circumstance.
Right.
And that thought makes you feel something. So the T stands for thought. The F stands for feeling. And I create this very easy to understand architecture to show you why and how you're getting the results in your life. And it's a simple mathematical formula that will prove to be true 100% of the time. And so I want you to see it in black and white. I want you to see the simplicity of it so that you can have a choice whether you want to continue to create that result for yourself or if you want something different. And there is no right or wrong answer. It's just all about taking your awareness. Yeah. So you have a thought about a circumstance. Let's say you step on the scale and the scale says, 185 pounds. And your thought is, I'm never going to be able to get to my goal weight. Okay. So then that thought generates a feeling in your body. Most of us aren't even aware of it because this is happening in a split second. But you have the thought, I'm never going to be able to get to my goal weight, which makes you feel inadequate, frustrated, overwhelmed, right? And so if I was coaching you, I'd say, let's get really specific. Let's find that one feeling, that one vibration. Let's name it. So let's say frustrated. Yeah. And when you're feeling frustrated, and that thought is coming from your primitive, very reactive brain, you're going to react in some way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we want to get really clear on what those reactions look like. So maybe when you're feeling frustrated, you're up and inside the pantry in a split second, or you've now opened up the refrigerator door and you're perusing the shelves, or maybe you've opened up a bottle of wine. Maybe you've gotten snappy with your husband. Maybe you pick up your phone and you start scrolling social media. Like, how do you react to frustration? And we give several lines on that because I want you to be very exhaustive. I want you to really see that when you're feeling frustrated, which we all do quite often. Just to heighten your awareness around, how do you show up? What do you do? What don't you do? Maybe you start catastrophizing. Maybe you start looking for all of the evidence around how you've never been able to get to goal weight. All of a sudden, you start looking back at the evidence from 25 plus years ago, right? Yeah. Well, you can quickly see when you put all of those reactions together, what it is that you end up creating for yourself. And it all started from an unintentional thought that happened in the split second, in the blink of an eye. So I teach our clients how to first have the awareness that this mind math is playing out in the background. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, at least. So we're having 60,000 experiences based on those thoughts. And I just want to heighten the awareness around that, so that you can look at that result and ask yourself, is that serving me? Do I want to continue to create that for myself?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so the answer is no, then we can work on being intentional. We can take the exact same circumstance, 185 pounds on the scale, and ask ourselves, what do we want to think and feel about that? And here's the key. It has to be believable. This is not the power of positive thinking. This is the power of beliefs. What do I believe about that number? Right? That it's just a number. It's just data. It's just reflecting how much my muscle, my water retention, the fat, the blood, all the things happen to weigh today, right? That's like what I could think about it, which might make me feel pretty neutral, right? Yeah. But just notice how dramatic the other thinking is. The unintentional thought creates a lot of drama.
It's so much more fun.
Yeah, we live our life from that. And that, quite honestly, when you slow down enough to see your mind map, you'll very quickly realize, holy moly, I live from a lot of drama, a lot of dramatic thinking, right? And so we teach what we call the 4 basics, just another framework of losing weight. It's SELF. So it's solving mind map is the foundation. It's eating the foods that fuel you uniquely, because that's different for everybody. Learning to collect data to make your decisions from. The L is learning to collect data to make the decisions from, so that you don't make decisions from dramatic thoughts, which, by the way, is the default. Most of us make decisions from dramatic thinking if we don't know any better. Yeah. And then the F is fasting, learning how to fast to lower your insulin, to balance out that hormone, and really ultimately start to burn the fat that is stored on your body as a source of energy versus what it is that you're eating. So those are the 4 basics that we teach. But like I said, it all comes back to solving the mind map. That is the foundation of it all.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So just out of curiosity, do you find that people mostly come to you for physical kinds of issues?
Yes.
Whether it's weight or a I don't want to say disease, but
most
those
definitely.
kinds of things. Yeah.
I
and
get
that then goes out into their life, and
yes,
everything else kind of changes as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I feel very blessed that, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I struggled with my weight. I struggled with overeating. I struggled with over drinking. And so, I talk about, that my 2 favorite topics are wealth and wellness. And, obviously those are huge buckets that have all sorts of circumstances inside of it. But the reason why I love coaching on those things is because those are things that I've created for myself. And I had to overcome a lot of challenges. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. I truly believe that. I am not a unicorn or a special snowflake. I learned how to manage my mind and my thoughts through applying this mind map. And I have all sorts of stories that will make you cringe. So I promise you that if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I used to live my life, deciding on how I was going to feel every day based on what the number on the scale said, period. I would let that define my day. And I no longer do that anymore. Very liberating.
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's and the thing that's so neat about it is that it is, we were talking about that as an example, right? But it really is so applicable to so many other things in your life, because that is just the way our brains work.
Right. We have
the thought and the feeling and
Yeah. So I like to heighten the awareness around, we have the prefrontal cortex, the front part of our brain, that is really the decision-making part of our brain. But if that's not triggered, if we don't trip the trigger of that, we by default allow our primitive brain, the survival part of our brain, very fear-based, reactive part of our brain, run the show. That's just human nature. So there's nothing wrong with you if that's happening. It's just you might not like the results that you're creating for yourself. And we can show you how to trip the trigger of your prodigy brain so that you start making decisions based on facts. We strip away the drama and we notice what's happening and we make a decision that we actually like our reasons for, and we move forward. Yeah. But 2 parts of our brain, and they're both, functioning. They both have a purpose. There's nothing wrong with us that we're having those primitive brain thoughts. I would say a lot of people ask me what's the takeaway here? And I always say the takeaway is, if you are feeling defeated, if you're feeling broken, if you're feeling stuck, It's gene generated from a primitive brain thought that you just don't yet know how to manage. It is not your fault. We are human. Primitive brain thoughts are never going to go away. What we're going to teach you to do is not to react to them. We're going to teach you to respond. So I said earlier, a self-made person is somebody who takes responsibility. They have strengthened the skill. They've strengthened their ability to respond.
Yeah, their muscle. They strengthened the muscle.
Yeah. So we teach you how to flex that muscle of responsibility.
Yeah. No, and that's sorry, something outside my window. That's a muscle that a lot of people never learned.
Right. How to use. It's never too late. It's never too late.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And and food is probably one of the places that people start.
No doubt. Yeah. Those primitive brain thoughts, they are so dramatic, and they often create unwanted feelings like fear. And most of us have lived a good portion of our life trying to outrun those unwanted feelings, or to numb them, or to buffer them. Food is an easy way. It's probably one of the number one buffer tools so that you can numb any of those feelings: overwhelm, frustration, fear. I know I used to. Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I personally did that, but I was much younger. I ended up getting that part of my life under control when I was, oh my God, what was I? I'm trying to think. First year of graduate school. Yeah. And then it's a skill
I was lucky.
Yeah. And now I'm sure you use that skill set and apply it to other areas of your life, because you've now created evidence that you can manage your thoughts. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because people didn't talk about it that way then.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now we have a new vernacular. At least I do. I go around spewing my vernacular, and people are like, what is she talking about? So thankfully I have people like you who invite me onto your podcast so I can explain it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So anyways, okay. Well, is there anything else? I know we kind of talked, we started with that as with weight as kind of the example, and probably the example that most people can identify with.
Yeah.
At some level. So if you want to, if you
have a listener who's really struggling with their weight, and they feel like this has been just this ongoing battle for the majority of their life, I want you to recognize that you're thinking about your weight. It's really creating a feeling, and it has you showing up in such a way. And so what we've done at Self-Made You for people who are just trying to kind of get their arms around this is we created a quiz. It takes about 90 seconds, and it reveals your relationship with food. And so we boiled it down to the snacker, the overthinker, the quick fixer, and the romantic. And so you can take this quick 90-second quiz. It reveals where you fall in accordance to those 4 personas. And then we offer you a quick 5-day challenge, totally free. And it starts with solving the mind math. And, but it's talking very specifically to you as the person who shows up in such a way that qualifies you as one of those personas. And so, I think that that's really interesting. And I think a lot of people conclude that, the self-loathing, the beat down that they do every single day because of a circumstance, a number on the scale, that it doesn't have to be that way. And you can learn to love your body the way it is right now. You can learn to love the process of getting to your ideal weight. There are so many extraordinary experiences out there that you've probably never even considered, because you're so distracted in this self-loathing, defeated type loop. So I would recommend going to our website, selfmadeyou.com, and taking that quiz and really heightening your awareness around, what your relationship with food is.
Yeah. Yeah. Or any other issue in your life, right?
For sure. Mm-hmm.
Because it's applicable. Food is just one of those things that it's there's probably more people dealing with that.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's something that everybody can relate to, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But managing your mind around relationships or professional life or alcohol or shopping. I mean, there's just literally any circumstance there is nothing off the table. And I will get, clients who will sign up for like a one-on-one session with me, and they'll ask, are there any boundaries? And honestly, there isn't. There's really nothing off the table. Everything is, fair game to be coached on, because like I said, we have 60,000 thoughts, and only because we're experiencing circumstances. And I love the fact that this methodology can be applied to absolutely anything. And so if I have the privilege of being able to show you, guide you through, contrasting circumstances, I think it's going to serve you in a better way. So I think it's effective across the board.
No, it makes perfect sense, because that's what life is, right?
Right.
Life is thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
If we're dead, we can't have them, right?
Right. Yeah. We only experience life through our feelings. And so, it's worth it to be a little bit more intentional, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being reactionary too just does not
usually doesn't end
not helpful. No, exactly. So, okay. Well, great. I will put the website link in the show notes.
Thank you.
And you can send me anything else as well that you would like me to include.
Sounds good.
Happy to do that.
Wonderful.
And I will wrap this up with the usual ending, which is that neither of us are doctors. This is not medical advice. And if you are really, really sick, please go to the emergency room or go see your doctor and get some help. And with that, I will say goodbye, and I will see everybody next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.